one of the decisions that I had to make when I decided that I was no longer going to be a woodworker, but I was going to go to law school, was where to apply to law school. My wife and I were living in Ithaca, New York at the time, because Cornell is where I went for graduate school, where I had my woodworking business. And we loved Ithaca. It was a great town. My wife had been moved around from city to city by her parents because of her father's career, and she hated moving. And so when I said to her, I'm going to apply to law school, she was okay with that. She was particularly okay with the fact that I applied to Cornell and to Syracuse, but I applied to Harvard Law School as well. And she tried to dissuade me from doing that. I said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to get in. The odds are, you know, whatever they were, stiff odds. And she said, yes, but I'm worried that if you do get in, then you'll want to move. And I said, don't worry about it, honey. It'll be fine. But I got in. So then we moved to Boston. She was not happy about moving her pottery studio from Ithaca to Boston, but we did. And now she looks back and says that was a good decision. But there were a couple of years there where she didn't. The jury was out on whether she would think that was a good idea. So I went to Harvard Law School, and then went to a clerk for Judge, well, now Justice Breyer. He was then Court of Appeals Judge Stephen Breyer. And then went to work in this firm, Hill and Barlow. And I have to say, I'm a little, you asked me about my qualifications, I'm a little ambivalent about this whole Harvard thing. And as you mentioned, I teach there as well. I teach as an adjunct, as a lecturer, I teach mediation at Harvard Law School. I'm a little ambivalent about it because, you know, the egalitarian part of me, the civil rights, civil liberties, anti-war movement part of me, is a little uncomfortable with what Harvard means in the world. One of my mentors, Carolyn Grace, brilliant lawyer, she taught federal litigation at Harvard Law School. I went to work for her during the summer because I saw in her just extraordinary genius for advocacy, and she said to me when I worked for her that summer that she had worked in a big firm, Foley, Hoag and Elliott, and one of her unhappy experiences was that in comparison to she went to Northeastern University Law School, and in comparison to the Harvard Law School and Yale Law School and Stanford Law School graduates at that firm, she always had the feeling that she was treated differently, that the people who went to those law schools wore a halo. If they made a mistake, it was like, well, you see, even brilliant people make mistakes from time to time. But she, by virtue of not wearing that halo, if she made a mistake, it was like, oh, well, we ought to, you know, watch her work to see if maybe, you know, she's not as smart as the others. Well, she was every bit as smart. But that halo effect kind of bothered me. And so on the one hand, I feel like I'm the beneficiary of that halo effect. I'm still a little uncomfortable with it. I also recognize that the opportunity to influence the world is enhanced by having that credential. So it's complicated. What did you ask me about other things that I've done? So I guess the civil rights, anti-war activist part of me that likes to organize things and, you know, make change, has caused me to get involved in a variety of organizations in the dispute resolution field. So my first step was to get involved with the Boston Bar Association ADR committee. And there I met a mediator, Gregory Sobel, who sadly is no longer with us. He passed away. But Gregory was the chair of the ADR committee. And even though he was younger than me, I looked to him as a role model, as a mentor. I said, I want to be able to run a meeting the way Gregory does. I could see he was brilliant as a mediator because he would listen to everybody in the room, and then when it was his turn to say something, he acknowledged each person in the room by mentioning something about what they had said. And he wove their comments together in a way that made something beautiful, made something whole. And I thought, this is a remarkable talent. And so Gregory handed the baton to me of being the chair of this ADR committee. So that was my first position of responsibility. And then I got involved with the Association for Conflict Resolution, which then was called SPIDER, Society of Professionals in Dispute Resolution. I became the president of the New England chapter of SPIDER, now ACR. Then I got involved with the ABA section of dispute resolution, and after being on the council for a while, became the chair of that. Rita Pollack and I, in the meantime, got very interested and involved in collaborative law, and so she and I convened a bunch of folks to form the Massachusetts Collaborative Law Council. And now, as an emeritus chair of the ABA section of dispute resolution, I'm serving as the co-chair of the Collaborative Law Committee because I want to help advance that work. And so we've now got the Uniform Collaborative Law Act, which we're trying to promote within the ABA. I guess I've had some other positions of responsibility, but those are the ones that most come to mind. But I view each of those as an opportunity to create community, to create connection, to create change in the world. So we know that expression of, probably influenced by Buddhist thinking, that in life we should show up, pay attention, speak our own truth, and not be attached to the outcome. So speaking the truth, particularly speaking truth to power, and not being attached to the outcome, are very interesting strands in our dispute resolution culture. We want to make the world a better place, but we also have to recognize that there are limits to what we can change, to what we can accomplish. And to be whole, to be peaceful, and to be the best people we can be sometimes requires acceptance of that. I'll give you one quick story. And it has to do with Boston Law Collaborative over here and a litigation firm over here. Now, we shared for several years the 16th floor in our building with a litigation firm. And so one day we decided we're going to have lunch together. We invited the litigators to come, and in our big conference room, we sat around the table and we talked about what we do. And so I asked the head of the litigation office, who is a teacher of Buddhism, how he reconciles non-attachment to outcome with his work as a very successful litigator. And he said, I'm not attached to the outcome, but I'm very focused on the outcome. And I thought he expressed very nicely the way in which we as dispute resolvers, as social change advocates, can be very focused on making the world a better place without suffering the attachment to any particular outcome in that vector, in that direction. These are things that we hold very dear to us. And in order to be effective, we have to develop personal and spiritual practices that will allow us to feel whole.